Spoiler Talking Agent Carter Season 2. Hello everyone, welcome to my spoiler talk of Agent Carter Season 2. So we start off Season 2 with basically resolving that one plot thread of Season 1. I talked about in the review that Season 1 basically ended pretty well, but I forgot about the Dottie escape thing. But that basically gets resolved immediately in this season, first episode, and I really like that as well. And then when they're interrogating Dottie, Sousa calls Thompson. Is like, yo, I need an extra set of hands, because Sousa is now the chief of the LA SSR, and I'm so happy for him. He definitely deserves it, and he's about to get married, kind of. But we'll get to that when we get to that. That is the one thing I don't like in this show. Like, absolutely do not like in this season at all. The love triangle. It makes me so mad. But anyway, so basically, in LA, there is a woman who is frozen inside of a lake, and it's the middle of summer. It is so hot, but the lake just didn't get the memo, and it's frozen over. So Susan needs some extra set of hands. So Agent Carter comes over to LA, and Mr. Jarvis is already in LA because Howard is filming a movie. He opened up his own studio and is making movies now. But we have Jarvis, who has an issue with a flamingo, which I actually wrote here as flamingo. Oops. And then when we get to the house, we meet Mrs. Jarvis, and it's like perfect. She is also the complete opposite of Mr. Jarvis, which I also very much like. And then we start the investigation about how this woman was frozen, and we end up in Isodyne, which is a company owned by Calvin, who is running for mayor. And we have the Council of Nine in this season. Apparently that's what they're called in the MCU wiki. And they basically control everything. So yeah, we got a lot to unpack in this season. But we go to Isodyne. It doesn't necessarily work out, but we do meet the Dr. Wilsk, and yeah, he's a nice guy. He seems like a good guy. I mean, he basically gives Agent Carter some wine that he made himself, and that's it. That's basically the interaction that we have with him. He'll come back into play later on. And then when the Isodyne investigation doesn't really work, we also learn that Detective Andrew is an evil guy, and then we go to stop him. And we also meet Vernon of the FBI, who basically take Dottie, and yeah, well, that's not really gonna work out the way that it's supposed to. So episode 2, we have us Jarvis sparring, and I very much enjoyed this. Jarvis just poking Peggy. I like that a lot. And also we have the fact that I think this is the episode where we actually learn that Chief Sousa is in a relationship, and also the fact that Chief Sousa went to LA in order to avoid Peggy Carter, which you might think is a drastic overreaction to being in love. But no, I know exactly what he's talking about in that sense, why he's doing it. I know the feeling. You see a woman every day at work or at your house, you know, where you live, that you have a huge crush on, and you know that she is just probably never gonna be with you. You're better off just getting away from her, like going away from her, than to stay there, be heartbroken, and maybe do something stupid. I like that they actually tackled that. But Sousa is kind of like a bit hesitant to introduce his fiance to Peggy Carter. So don't worry, they'll do it for you. They introduce they go home, and it's like, oh hey, look, now they're together. You know, Peggy and the fiance, whose name I forgot, are talking. And this is kind of also where I have an issue, because Peggy, Sousa, and the doctor, the black doctor, Wilkes, I think his name was, they come into this love triangle. And I like the fact that Sousa has found someone else. But then they break that so that Sousa can be with Peggy. But they still have this whole love triangle thing going on. And also, in a way, the movies have already confirmed that these two are never going to be together. And I think that even in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 7, they kinda, if you want to count Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. as canon, I don't care what people have said unless it is officially shown in official media. I do not count something as canon. People can say whatever they want. I've spent years thinking that everything Marvel TV did was connected to the MCU, because that was what was said, and it was all just a lie until Marvel officially confirms it. Like in Echo, for example, they did that backstory episode for Kingpin where he beat his father to death with a hammer, and it's like that is literally ripped from the Netflix show. So it's like the Netflix show is canon, which makes the whole Netflix saga canon to the MCU. And or it needs to not have a big effect on the MCU, like Agent Carter. But also, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. doesn't really line up because the future is weird. Like, Season 5 is just where all the problems come from. Because before Season 5, in Season 1 through 4, it stays in its own bubble, respecting the lore of the MCU. And then with Season 5, it's just like, no, because the Earth got split in half. Because of the fact that, you know, someone like Quake got mad and just, like, split it in half. And it's like, how does this involve the Thanos part? You know, how does that work with Thanos? Because he needs to come to Earth in order to get the Infinity Stones. So does he not get the Infinity Stones? Also, what happened to all the other stuff that's... Like, it just doesn't make sense if you really think about it. And then you have Season 6 and 7, which already do not work. Because Season 6 takes place a year after. But nobody's gone because they didn't know how Avengers Endgame was going to go because of spoiler reasons. So they got nothing, but it's a year later. And that is a bit of an issue because nobody snapped away. So the snap hasn't happened in that timeline or has already been reversed. But that doesn't make sense with the lineup of Endgame. Like, it just doesn't line up. So that way, like, if you want to see Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is connected to the MCU or not, it's gonna be difficult. Also, the way that they, like, when they do Inhumans in the MCU, which, you know, redo Inhumans in the MCU, like, how is that gonna work with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.? Also, S.H.I.E.L.D. doesn't really exist anymore in the movies, and we never really had a mention of S.H.I.E.L.D. existing, outside of the fact that it's like, you know, like, Age of Ultron was like the last big, like, movie where it's like, oh, hey, look, S.H.I.E.L.D. could potentially still be running around. But after that, it's like, yeah, okay. I mean, and we had Ghost Rider. How's it gonna work if Marvel ever does the Ghost Rider? It's a bit confusing right now. So that's what I mean with the fact that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., for me, for now, I don't see as canon. Even if the people behind Marvel TV, the new Marvel TV, have said that, yeah, it is, because unless you actually prove it, there isn't. So, next up we have, so I just wanted to say that, so, like, the whole Chief Sousa and Peggy and his fiance thing, I didn't like that. Anyway, so we have the Council of 9. We get the introduction to them, and they basically control everything because they're rich and powerful, and they literally just control everything. It's like they know exactly what's gonna happen because they're gonna make it happen. They also are in an arena club, which is I see the joke that I wanted to make, but they got in the arena club. They work in their meeting room is in the arena club, which is a men's only club, which that feels very 1947. If I'm being honest here. A men's only club feels very 1947. And also, apparently, 30 is too old because Whitney is getting old. That is what's being said. It is literally said by the movie director, says that Whitney is old. Yeah, I don't agree with that. 30 being too old. I know that that is a very right-wing thing to say nowadays with the fact that it's like, but that's just dumb. What do you mean 30 is too old? I mean, come on, dude. I mean, you got like one, like, oh man, that was like a couple of months ago or like even a year ago. That was like this one woman, I don't even remember her name, but she was just yelling about the fact that men would rather date a 16-year-old than a 30-year-old because 30 is too old. And it's just like, what are you talking about? First of all, that's illegal. And second of all, what? So I thought, you know what? In the first season, I kind of attacked the left with the whole, like, strong, independent woman, which is a stupid concept. And, well, now I'm attacking the right with the fact that 30 is too old, which is also very stupid. And also in this episode, we get the Isodyne backstory of the goo. We get the goo introduction and the Zero Matter is what it's called, which I kind of call symbiote, but sure. But anyway, basically back in the day, I don't know when, I forgot when it was, but back in the day, they exploded on like an atom bomb or something like that, and it opened up like this rift, and from there came this goo, and they called it Zero Matter, and that's it. So obviously Peggy is like, let's steal it. Oh, and by the way, the Arena Club and, well, the Club Council of 9 are like, or the Council of 8 are like, no, we're canceling your Zero Matter project because it hasn't delivered anything. I'm also trying to remember a whole show, so give me a break. And then we have the fact that, well, the Doctor throughout this episode, all over the place, remember, he helps Peggy because also he likes her, but who doesn't? Have you seen Haley Atwell? I mean, the fact that later on, it's like, she is shocked that she can pull 2 guys. It's like beyond me. Have you seen yourself, woman? Fact that not every man in the whole of the SSR is lusting after you is something that is even beyond me. Because look at yourself. But anyway, we have Dr. Wilkes, and he basically starts to help Peggy Carter secretly, kind of, but not really secret. he's not good at it being secretly. And he eventually gives her, like, shows her the origin of the Zero Matter. And then she's like, let's go steal it. And then they go and steal it. But Whitney is there as well. And then we have a big explosion that happens. And then it looks like Wilkes dies. And Whitney has absorbed Zero Matter. That's the one. I just wrote down here. Whitney absorbed venom. And then after that, in the next episode, we get the whole Fallout thing. Like, oh my god, he's dead. But we also get the return of Howard Stark officially. And he's making a movie. And to be honest, Peggy Carter has no faith that superhero movies will ever work. And Howard is like, well, if it doesn't work, we can count it as a write-off. And it's like, those are all things that happen in the real world, kind of. I mean, the fact that, you know, like the meta commentary about the superhero movie thing, it's actually funny. And then also the write-off thing, I immediately thought about Batgirl, which, I don't know, I think it's a good move that they shelved that movie. But to be honest, they should have canceled the whole thing and just gone with DCU instead. But he is making movies. And also in this episode is when Thompson decides to just be the worst. Like, he is just the worst in this season. Throughout this season, like, until the end. But he's just the worst because he's in Vermin's claw. Vermin has its hand around Thompson. But Thompson doesn't necessarily see that until the end of the season. And this is kind of where I talk to my review where it's like they kind of regressed this character. Because in the first season, he was very much against Peggy Carter. And then during the whole, you know, going to Russia thing, they bonded. And now he is more on her side. And also with the fact of how season 1 happened. R.I.P. Chief Dooley. He seems more it seems like he should trust Peggy Carter more. But he doesn't. He just doesn't in this season. And it kind of feels like, you know, we're going back. Also, Playboyisms win the day. Because of the fact that Peggy wants to, because they learn about the whole, like, you know, arena club and stuff like that. So Peggy wants to plant less listening device in there. However, women aren't allowed in. So what do? You have Howard Stark pretending that he wants to be a member and do his Howard Stark thing of getting all of the girls that he had at his pool and bringing them straight to the arena club. And then Peggy Carter can sneak in because there are like 50 girls here now. Women. There are 50 women here now. Don't worry. They're like 25 or something like that. Which, I don't know if that's too old, but still. So Peggy can slip in, plant the listening devices until, you know, they break. So nothing works. So she comes back and it's like, yeah, look, this is the whole thing. They're rigging everything. Okay, where's the evidence? Yeah, I ain't got any. Alright, but at least you have the listening devices. Yeah, we don't have any of that. So that whole plan is just failure. So she can't even prove her own talking point. Which I thought was pretty funny with the way that they handled it. And I also had a house moment in this episode. Because Stark starts teaching stuff to people. Because there's weird stuff going on around Peggy Carter. Like, stuff is floating, but only on one side. And it turns out that Wilkes is alive. And with the wording that he uses, he is an actual creep. Because he's like, I've been following you around since last night. It's like, so, wait. Probably after that whole incident happened, Peggy went home, took a shower probably, went to bed. Well, changed clothes, went to bed, woke up, changed clothes again. And were you just watching? Were you just watching? I mean, I would. I'm just not gonna deny that stuff. If she wouldn't know that I was there, I most certainly would. I wouldn't do anything, but I would just look, but she doesn't know it. I think that's in the realm of being kind of fine, because I never would have expected to be back anyway. But I like how Stark teaches the class like house, because like Peggy kind of berates him for it. It's like, what, are you teaching a class or something like that? It's like, but that's how house works. I thought that was a fun thing. And then, notice me, senpai. Alright. The doctor has been trying to get Peggy to notice her. I just wrote, notice me, senpai. And then when they're trying to figure out a way, like they figure out a way to get the Wilkes back, which is great. But then it doesn't work. It's not long term. So Howard is like, all right, I need this. Oh, and get me that cheese that I like. The yellow one. I just like, oh my, which yellow one? But Jarvis is a genius. Knows exactly which one he wants. And then late at night, we have Peggy who is trying to, well, who is almost getting killed. Literally, she's like, no, don't worry about it, Jarvis. You go inside. But Jarvis walks inside, and that moment, someone pops up from behind her and just starts strangling her. And then she is able to get him into the water, and then they get out. And then with the help of Jarvis, they take him down. And then, well, that's basically it. And then afterwards, we have the fact that we go back to Whitney because she's alive. I mean, Wilkes is fine. You know, like he is now Ghost Man. but Whitney is fine. However, she now has a bit of a black scar on her face, and she learns that she can truly suck. I mean, she sucks up this rat. I know women are supposed to suck, but that goes too far. So then in episode 4, we get Peggy's backstory with her brother, and her brother supposedly died. I will take that as fact. Absolutely, I will take that as fact. Her brother died because we didn't get season 3. Because the guy with in black that wore the hat in season 1 that killed Officer Prick in episode 3, I think, after the ship stuff was found. That was supposed to be Peggy's brother. It's the same guy that kills Thompson at the end of the season. Was supposed to be Peggy's brother. That scene doesn't exist. Her brother is just dead. But anyway, we learned that her brother is the one that pushed her into becoming an agent in the first place. I like that. He sees something in her that no one else sees, and her soon-to-be husband is not really keen on Peggy becoming an agent anyway. And it's like, well, okay, you don't really know your future wife, do you, my friend? So I like the backstory that we got. I mean, we don't have character development this season. Like, last season was like overcoming the grief of Captain America. This season we have nothing for Peggy. But we do get backstory, so that's fun. And Whitney keeps sucking up rats. Actually, no. In the last episode, she did not do rats. She sucked the movie producer because he gets handsy with her. He gets very handsy with her, and then he sees the scars like, what the fuck? What is that? And then, you know, we get sucked up. Anyway, so back in the main story, we have the fact that Peggy and Jarvis are gonna go and get the guide at the pool because they follow Calvin around, and they notice that one of the bodyguards has like a limp, and it's like, oh hey, that's the same place where you shot him last night. It's like, yep, so he's the bad guy. So they follow him and they kidnap him, but because of how big and strong he is able to withstand the tranquilizer. So that's fun. Didn't think to bring a second one, did you? And if they kidnap him, and then they interrogate him, and everything is perfectly fine outside of the fact that Vernon at the SSR is ruining the SSR. He comes in to basically ruin everything at the SSR, so that's not fun. But we get the information eventually out of the pool guy. I call him pool guy. I don't even know what his name was, but I just wrote him as kidnapping pool guy. So eventually, like, it's like, oh yeah, you could torture me all you want. It doesn't matter. And then Peggy is just like, oh, I'm gonna inject you with like the worst disease imaginable, when she just gave him a cold. So he doesn't need to know that. But eventually they get all the information out of him, and then when he runs back home, they put a listening device on him, and then he gets sucked up by Whitney as well, and that's how Calvin learns about the whole thing. And also, as and then I guess that's basically episode 4. So episode 5, we have the fact that we are now searching for Jane Scott's body, because the fact that we need more of the black stuff in order to get Wilkes to be more normal. So that's fun. Problem is, Whitney is also searching for that, because the fact that she needs more of the black stuff as well. So we're all searching for some black stuff. But Whitney, sadly enough, gets there first because, you know, rich and powerful kind of gets you everywhere. So she sucks the black out of Jane Scott's body and, well, then wants an atomic bomb to get more. Because this season is very much about power obsession. How when you are obsessed with power, the power will kill you. Or, you know, does maybe even worse than that with the way that Whitney is at the end of the season. However, we need to stop Whitney from getting the atomic bomb like rods that she wants. So, but we first need to figure out where it is. So we go to Roxxon, and we once again have the Roxxon boss. However, Peggy puts on this disguise where it's like, you know, like she's just like this helpless girl kind of thing. I don't know, that's kind of the persona that she went with. But the problem is that the Roxxon boss recognizes her, and she planned for that because we went over to the to Samberly in order to get mind-wiping shock things that will erase the last 2 minutes. However, if you use it too much, I guess that means that you are going to be mentally ill, even though he doesn't have any side effects. Even though he got shocked a lot. But that guy that they tested it on walks into a wall. So it's a bit weird. Inconsistent, as you could say. But Peggy's like, oh, hello. Aren't you supposed to be going to lunch? Alright. And then she searches the office. And every time it's like, oh, agent. Walks back, gets shocked, walks away, comes back. Until Peggy eventually, you know, searches the whole office and is like, it's not here. And then she sees a poster where it's like the key is with you. And it's like, okay, so he has the key with him. So she searches him everywhere. All his pockets. He doesn't have it on him. And then when he wakes up each time, she shocks him again. Which was an entertaining scene. And then she's like, oh my god, did he put it in his underwear maybe? So she starts to undo his pants, but it's the belt buckle that just has an opening. So she opens it up and grabs the key, shocks him again and again and again for good measure, and then leaves. Now they have the key. And then the dude walks out, and then it's like, oh, how was your lunch? And he's like, I must have had a good lunch. And this episode is also where we meet Man Freddy, who I found very entertaining in the show. He later on helps the gang in order to stop Whitney. But before that, I found him entertaining. He just like, hey, you think this woman is beautiful? And the dude's like, yes. And then he's just smacking him. Are you undressing my guests with your eyes? Basically, almost kill him. Just thought I'd mention that. He is also a very unstable guy. Anyway, but now we need a team in order to be able to get the atomic bomb, like the cores, out in order to be able to basically make those useless. So we need the Avengers, and we get the Avengers with Peggy Carter, Edwin Jarvis, Sousa, Rose, and we got Samberly. We have the Avengers. That was the first thing that I thought about. So they go over there in order to steal the rods while hijinks happen. Like, the door gets locked. So while Sousa has been preparing in order to remove the core from the rod, Jarvis now has to do it. So that's fun. Jarvis is all in panic, even though I feel like he shouldn't really be in panic. He's probably the most qualified one to do this kind of stuff. Looking at the fact that he's the butler, and butlers are usually very careful with everything. And we have some fun hijinks about the fact, like taking people down and all that stuff. However, we need to distract Whitney, so Peggy goes to distract her, and then, learns the hard way how dangerous she is. So that's fun. And then eventually she falls and gets pegged. Peggy gets pegged, but she gets a rod through her side. And there you go. And also Jason vanishes for a bit. But we do get the core, and then we escape. And then in episode 6, we have the return of Dottie, because we need to get a sample, because they want to make a containment room for Dr. Wilkes. The problem is, we need a sample of the dark matter. So, we need to go and steal a sample. However, Whitney knows who everyone is. So, we need an unknown face, and that's where Dottie comes in. So, Peggy basically dresses up as a therapist, goes over and busts Dottie out while injured. Look, it's a Marvel show. Just go with it. We're not focusing on the realism here. So, she breaks Dottie out. And then also is like, go left, and she goes right in order to escape. And it's like, I knew you would do that, and throws a net. Which makes me think, what if she actually obeys the rules? Whatever. I guess it's just like she knows her. And then eventually they get her to help with the mission. It's just like, poke her with this. And she actually does that very stealthily. Because she walks in and she pokes Whitney with it, with the syringe, and then has like like a needle thing already ready in order to be like, oh my god, this thing just won't stay on. Did I poke you with it? I'm so sorry. And that's it. It's all perfect. But then Dottie becomes a bit snoopish, so everything kind of goes horribly wrong. And, well, Dottie eventually gets kidnapped, which is the point of episode 7, where we gotta rescue Dottie. But I like the whole, like, spy-esque scene for this, because Thompson is there as well, and Thompson knows who Dottie is. Nobody else really does, but Thompson does. So it's like, we kind of need to distract him. So Jarvis goes to distract him, and that makes him even more suspicious because of the fact that Carter is here, and because of the fact that those two work together in season 1. So that makes him very suspicious that Carter is here too, and he wants to do a security check. And yeah, everything kind of goes horribly wrong. And also the fact that this is also when I think it's episode 5 or 6 where the engagement gets broken off, and then Sousa basically is like, yeah, she broke it off because of the fact that she thinks that I'm in love with you. It's like, yeah, but you are. And then when they're about to kiss, everything, like a guy falls on the van. So now everything is horribly wrong, and we need to escape with the sample, and we can focus on the other one. We can focus on rescuing Dottie the next episode. Speaking of which, in the next episode, the chamber has been built. Now we use it, and he's solid. So that's great. Finally, Peggy can touch Dr. Wilkes, whose name I keep forgetting. However, not everything is great here, because this is also the episode in which we need to rescue Dottie. So they come up with a plan. They have this big machine where you need to type in a 6-digit code, and then you have like a big sonic blast that blasts everyone away. Perfectly fine. So they go and try to rescue Dottie, because Dottie's tracker happened again. Because also during the interrogation, like Whitney, like Vernon is like, oh yeah, hey, I'm gonna use all of the tactics that I know, but it doesn't work. So Whitney eventually is just like, all right, just like starts using her powers, and it's like, okay, yeah, now she immediately spills it, so that's great. And this is what I meant when the effects, like when the zero matter is in Dottie's throat, it's just like, it looks so weird. It looks a bit off, but it's a TV series, so you can't expect the best effects. I guess they're doing the best that they can with the money that they have. But eventually it's like she gets all the information where it's like, yeah, about Peggy's plan. So, but Peggy now rescue her, and that is a distraction that Whitney wants. So Peggy goes to rescue her, and Jarvis types in the wrong code because it's the wrong women measurements, because it's the women measurements of another woman. And yes, when I mean women measurements, I mean like 23, 33, 23, that kind of stuff, the perverted ones. But what else do you expect with Howard? However, the code that he typed in turned out to be a delayed sonic boom, but everyone gets but Jarvis and Peggy get captured, and well, then they have to escape, but now they have to escape faster than Dottie, otherwise Dottie is gonna kill them. So that's great, the race against the clock. And you know, eventually they're like, okay, but why is the security so low? Like, where's Whitney in all of this madness? Where is she? Oh, by the way, big thing I forgot to write down is in episode 6, Calvin, who I haven't mentioned at all, he learns in episode 5 or 4, no, maybe 4, learns of the fact that Whitney has powers, so goes to the council in order to kind of like get rid of her, but then she frees herself because of her powers. She now has more control over it, and then sucks up a couple of council members and has her own council. I forgot to mention, and also sucks up her husband as well, because why wouldn't she? He's the one who planted this trap, and he's like, no, sorry, please don't hurt me. It's like, yeah, you're too late, die. Thought I mentioned that. I forgot to write that down as a big plot point. I don't know why I didn't write that down. That's very, very sloppy of me. I apologize immediately. But Dottie is like, yeah, you know that this was a trap. And it's like, yeah. So, meanwhile, Manfredi and Whitney are going over to the Stark estate in order to get the doctor, because Whitney learns that the doctor's still alive. So she goes over there, kidnaps the doctor, but Anna, Jarvis's wife, sees this. So she goes outside to try and stop them. Eventually the main, like Peggy and Jarvis make it almost home. So as a distraction, Whitney shoots Anna, and then they leave. And I feel so bad for Jarvis right now. And also, I guess this is an explanation on why in the future. This wasn't really a question that I feel like people asked, but just in case people were gonna ask it, because it is a big question with the whole, relationships that they have. The very, very good relationship. Why didn't they have kids? Well, why was there never, like, in Iron Man 1, 2, 3, like, Jarvis became the AI, which then, in that sense, was named after the butler that his dad had. However, we never saw, like, the children of Jarvis in the MCU. Why not? Well, very simple. It's because at this point, Anna got shot, and they couldn't have kids anymore. Because Anna got shot and very injured. This makes Jarvis go basically nuts in that sense, because he wants his wife back. He's very, very worried right now about what's going to happen to his wife. And, well, also Sousa gets beaten up. Just, if the day wasn't bad enough already, let's just have that added as well. But they go to the hospital. Dottie also escapes at this point, so that's fun. That woman always does an escape artist. She's like Houdini. She's like the female version of Houdini. But in the next episode, we have Anna in the hospital in episode 8. We're almost at the end, I promise. But we have Anna at the hospital, and Jarvis is getting so worried about everything and just like having a panic attack, which understandable, dude. The woman that you love and, is potentially gonna die. You never know. And you want revenge as well. Understandable. The way you went about it was very stupid. But overall, I get the whole thing. So she goes, but it turns out Anna was fine. The problem is she can't have kids anymore, which breaks Jarvis down completely. And now in this episode, we also have an exchange between the rods and the doctor. And that goes horribly wrong because the doctor is now on the side of the bad guys, kind of. I forgot why. And also, Thompson has fake dirt because Vernon told him to get dirt on her. And he gets that very easily on Peggy Carter in order to force Peggy Carter out of there, because I feel like even Vernon now knows that it's like Carter is not someone that you can have walking around and investigate. She will ruin everything. So we need to get her out of the way. She needs to go back to New York and get away from LA immediately. So he gets dirt, and when Peggy reads that stuff, it's just like, oh yeah, hey, that was before the exchange. But she reads his stuff and it's like, it's rubbish. This is fake. And I believe her on that because of because of her reaction. She never once had a shocked reaction. She grabbed it, opened it up, read it, and then was like, this is rubbish, threw it back. No, don't you understand how, like, why are you not suspicious about how easily you got it obtained? And this is where the whole Thompson being kind of an idiot in this season is kind of an issue for me. I like Thompson. I kind of wish he became more of a leader instead of what they did with him. But I guess they needed a reason for him to be in the storyline because of the fact that him and Sousa now have the same job. So you don't need Thompson. You only have Sousa. No need for Thompson. So after that, we have the exchange. It goes horribly wrong. Everything, goes wrong, basically. And they learn where the real rods are. So Vernon gets a call and gets told where the rods are and to pick them up and bring it over to her. However, Thompson overhears this, so walks over to him and gets shocked by those shock things that make you lose your memory. So Peggy and Sousa arrive at the SSR and are like, Thompson, what happened? It's like, I don't remember. But then at that point, Thompson officially joins the good guys and it's like, finally. Took you 8 episodes, but you're finally on our side. Oh my goodness, you finally understand what we have been trying to do. And now we need to stop Whitney because she's gonna open up another rift and get more of the zero matter, which we can't let happen. So they go over to where Whitney is, and Whitney is ready to open it up with the doctor as well. However, the doctor gets sucked up into the thing and spit out, and Whitney gets nothing basically, which is funny. Great, because also the way that Whitney kind of uses it. Also, when I forgot about the backstory for Whitney, I once again didn't make a note of that one. I was very sloppy during this season, I must admit, because we also have a backstory for Whitney. Let's go over that real quick before we continue on. So basically, back in the day, Whitney was always a smart kid. She was always like an inventor, scientist kind of girl. She was gonna do something like that. However, the problem is she was born in a time when that didn't happen. And also her mother is basically a, I don't know if I can say that on this channel, but basically, well, there's a man who pays for everything and she uses her body in order to basically get stuff for free, which she also teaches her daughter, like, no, nobody cares about what's in your head. They only care about your looks. And it's like, no, not really. I mean, if you want to have a relationship like Jarvis, you gotta also look at what's in that head. But she basically gets abused in that sense, where it's like, stop building stuff, because she's like, look, mom, I fixed the radio. And it's like, bad girl. No, you're supposed to be just a girl. You're supposed to be, you know, a woman of the 1940s. You're not supposed to be you're not supposed to be Bob the Builder, okay? No Bob the Builder for you. You're not supposed to be Whitney the Builder. That's fun. But and that's what I meant when in the spoiler-free review that I said that I found that the backstory was a bit lacking in this sense, where it's like, I like Whitney in the storyline. I get what she has gone through. It is nowhere near what the villains of season 1 went through. So in that sense, I found her less compelling. But overall, you know, I enjoyed her on screen. But that's basically what happened. And then when the guy could find a younger woman, he basically got rid of Whitney's mom. And I forgot Whitney's real name. Anya, I think it was. But anyway, also later on, you have Whitney looking for movies. And she wants to watch a movie. But she doesn't really have the money. So there's one person who works there who gives her a free ticket. And then when she wants to go in to watch a movie, there's a guy who's like, hey, beautiful, how you doing? Would you like to become a model? And yeah, so she became a model and then an actress from there. So her life didn't turn out to be that garbage, if I'm being honest here. Overall, her life was not that garbage, outside of the fact that she married a garbage person who had an affair on her. But still, outside that, her life was not as garbage as like what the villains of season 1 went through. And it's just like, you know, with the fact that, you know, like your people are clawing each other to death. And you have the fact that Dottie's horribleness that she had to live through growing up. Compare that to what Whitney goes through, and I swear both of those villains wouldn't have been villains if they went through what Whitney went through. But Whitney is now a power-obsessed woman. Back to it. So they go into this desert place. Whitney opens up a portal. Wilkes gets sucked into it. And then we have, because Stark sent over plans in order to make a big cannon, stop the rift. So they fire that cannon, they stop the rift, and everything's fine. However, Jarvis now wants revenge. So he gets into the car and he drives over to Whitney. Beforehand, he actually told Rose to take care of his wife and also to give her this in case he doesn't make it back, which was basically his last will and testament, meaning he wasn't planning on coming back. So that's fun. So Jarvis goes over. Peggy gets into the truck and follows him, Which, yeah, okay, you just left the whole gang behind and in the middle of nowhere with like no vehicle at all, ready to be captured or even killed by the bad guys if they ever come here. But hey, do whatever you want. So Jarvis goes over there, shoots Whitney. However, it doesn't work because Whitney's immortal now, because she has superpowers. And that's kind of the thing that comes with superpowers. You don't really die unless it's absolutely necessary. So Peggy and Jarvis get captured, and then in episode 9, they escape. Also, you have the bad guys who go over to the place where the cannon was shot from. However, Thompson is able to weasel his way through everything and make sure that Sousa and Samberly stay alive. So everyone goes back home, kind of. And then Thompson tries to make... he tells Vernon, like, why don't we just use the cannon in order to get rid of Whitney? And obviously, Whitney is causing a lot of trouble. Why don't we just get rid of her? Smart thinking. He eventually joins, and Peggy and Jarvis, they have a bit of a heart-to-heart with each other. They escape the van or the truck, and then they talk to each other, and Jarvis is just like, you know, like very much going off on Peggy. And Peggy makes some good points where it's like, look, you still have your wife. You know nothing of loss. You just see these things as little adventures. But for me, they are nothing but loss. Okay, you've lost nothing. So she walks away, and to me I was like, oh, you're being a bit harsh now, Peggy, because you don't understand. So Jarvis like, yeah, but my wife can't get pregnant anymore. And in case you don't know, that might be the worst thing for a woman to hear, that she will never be able to get pregnant. Because I know nowadays women are like anti-pregnancy and they will celebrate abortions and all that stuff, and they hate children. But to be honest, ask any woman who has had a child. I've asked multiple women, even some that are on the left, older women by the way, if they would trade their child in order to have a career. They all said no. I live in an institute, by the way, where a lot of women work, so it's very easy for me to ask them those questions. But like, the worst thing for a woman to get outside of, you know, the normal stuff like abuse and all that stuff is the fact that she can't have kids. So at that point, Peggy immediately is like, oh my god, I'm so sorry for my harsh words. And I was like, that's good. That's good writing, because she did not do a good job. She effed up. Simple as that. So, and then eventually the bad guys come back. So they stage like, oh, Peggy has fainted because of the heat, because of how hot it is and how dehydrated she is. And then it's like, baha, surprise, bam, got your gun now. And then I knock you out. And then I go over to the other guy and I knock him out too. And we take the truck and now we're leaving. Bye. Now we're going back to New York, where Peggy just beats up Vernon, which I found very funny. But and then everyone comes in and is like, no, wait, he's on our side. It's like, ah. So they eventually plan to use the cannon on Whitney. However, Thompson has an even different idea. Because Thompson's idea is the fact that we just get rid of both of them. We'll just blow up the cannon. Simple as that. But yeah, not everyone is really on board with that one. Samberly was. So basically, Thompson betrays everyone. And then the Sousa and Samberly and Peggy, they go to stop Thompson, which doesn't really work. Not really anyway, because of the fact that Thompson wants to blow everything up. He pulls a gun on everyone because he's like, oh hey, look, I'm just gonna leave. Have fun, you two. You have fun with him. Because he also betrayed Vernon at that point as well, which is funny. He's like, hey, he tells Whitney like, hey, Vernon wants to kill you. So yeah, good luck with that information. I'm gonna go back and finish, make sure that the guys get everything finished so that you can have your cannon, and also do whatever you want with Vernon. There you go. And then later on comes back with the cannon, and Vernon's like, I'll leave you two alone. Have fun. So he walks away. He's ready to blow it up, but the trigger doesn't work, because there's a disruptor in the area, because Samberly has a disruptor. So Thompson tells it's like to undo it. So Samberly undoes it, and before he can hit the button, because of the fact that we had Dr. Wilkes went into the zero matter rift and came out with even more zero matter. He's now overloaded with zero matter, so he explodes basically. And well, yeah, that didn't really do much for him. He's just perfectly fine and alive. I kind of would have liked if he died. Like, the last season also had more weight because an actual character that we cared about died. Like, Dooley dies in season 1. It's like, no. But in this season, no one really dies. So it also doesn't really have that emotional weight. Like, we must stop the bad guys. It's more like, alright, yeah. I mean, outside of the fact that Anna can't have kids anymore. But I didn't want Anna to die anyway. But it would have been nice if Dr. Wilkes was actually dead. Would have also killed that stupid triangle. And then we have episode 10, in which it turns out that the doctor is alive and is cured now, and Manfredi joins the squad because Whitney is going a bit too far this time around. So they're all about trying to figure out how to make it work, how to stop Whitney. And then the plan is, we're gonna open up a rift, we're gonna wait for Whitney to show up, when Whitney shows up and stands in front of the rift, we're gonna hit her with a gamma ray cannon, which, by the way, I like that. Gamma, Hulk. Another reference. So we have Black Widow, Hulk, and Captain America and Iron Man. Fantastic. No Thor, though. But we're gonna blast the zero matter out of her, back into the portal, and then close the portal, the rift forever. So that way, we can get rid of it. Because basically what Dr. Wells is saying is the fact that zero matter is now in an area, is in a, I don't know, dimension where it has basically destroyed everything. Now nothing is in the zero, let's say the zero dimension. So now it wants to come to a new dimension in order to continue its work. So that's why we need to stop it. So it's basically kind of like an organism that is alive, but it's only alive. I mean, there's a voice in both characters' heads who were in contact with it while they are in contact with it. So Wilkes and Whitney are like, they both hear a voice. But we need to stop it because basically it's kind of like the way that they describe it. It's kind of like cancer. So we need to get rid of it. And for this thing, unlike cancer, we actually do have a cure. And that's just closing the portal, make sure it never happens. So that's the plan. And then Freddy joins the plan. However, we now need to be able to figure out a way to open up the rift. Because we need a bomb in order to do that stuff. But then Manfredi's like, no, Whitney has her own play. So they go to Whitney. Manfredi actually gets this guy who needs to play along. And it's like, you betrayed me. I did not, sir. And then Whitney needs to use her power in order to interrogate him. And then he actually gets out of the guy that he's working for the FBI. So that was funny. But they need to wait to get her out of the room. Peggy and Sousa go into the room, take a couple of pictures, and then they leave. And then also Sousa messes one thing up just to be, I don't know, just to slow her down. Even though that thing that he messes up, you can clearly still see that it's a 6, which is an 8 on top of it. It's like, oh, come on. So they steal the research. I like how, also before that, Howard is like, do what any great scientist does. Steal research. Simple as that, and take credit for it. So they go and build that machine, go over to the movie studio. Everyone has the day off, and open up a rift. And then we have, eventually, Whitney gets drawn to it. However, I also like how Sam really sees her first, and you just hear a big yell, and then it's like, oh my god, she got Sam. Like, no, they just fainted. But they go, but she walks all the way over. I also like how Howard's just chucking golf balls over to it, because he needs a way to. And then it's like, what am I doing wrong? Well, we're dealing with something unknown. Try this thing. It's like, great. But anyway, there's a lot of jokes in this season too. It's still not on the level of like the MCU nowadays, where it's joke. And I'm not talking about Deadpool. But she eventually gets over there. They use the rift cannon the gamma cannon in order to get it out. And then they need to close the rift. But the remote control isn't working. So while they're all arguing about who's gonna go and close the rift, because you should not be closer than a line that they did. When they do a line in the sand, like, you do not cross the line in the sand, otherwise you will be sucked in when that thing goes away, when we turn it off, because it will do a little bit of a suck in and then it's gone. So when they're arguing about who's gonna close it, because there is a way to close it, but it's on the machine itself, which is over the line. So while they're arguing, Sousa goes over there and he just ties himself and then just tries to close it. It doesn't really work because it requires too much, and he already starts flying into the air. And also his the rope, I guess rope, it's not a rope, but let's say rope, basically got unhooked. So Peggy and the rest of the gang are holding on to it, but he's already in the air, so it's not gonna work. So Jarvis has a plan, but it involves destroying the flying car by putting the core into that and blowing it up from the inside. And that way the thing will close. The problem is we need to destroy the flying car. And I actually did like this because it's kind of like a continuity thing with Captain America the First Avenger. Because in Captain America First Avenger, it's like, I got the flying car. And then it just breaks down. It doesn't work. But now it does. We finally figured it out. So they used the flying car in order to stop it. And now the day is saved. Yay, everything is fantastic. And then Whitney, because of all her exposure to zero matter, has now gone completely insane. So yeah, you get what you deserve. What did I just write? I wanted to write ending not canon, but I wrote engine, like ENDGIN. Engine not canon. I mean, it isn't, but ending not canon. But anyway, it ends on a kiss between Sousa and Peggy Carter, which I guess you can make out whatever you want. I mean, if you believe the people at Marvel, they think that when Captain America in Endgame goes back in time in order to live out his life with Peggy Carter, you know, how he turns into Joe Biden, that is like him living out his life with Peggy. But that happened in the main MCU continuity and not in an alternate universe. which, yeah, that's great and everything. Doesn't make sense at all, but that's not how time travel, that's not how you explain how time travel works. Well, we have Sousa and Peggy Carter eventually kiss, so I guess they're in a relationship now. And yeah, then we have a mysterious figure who shoots Thompson, which I'm not gonna say he didn't deserve it, but yeah. Anyway, that's not canon because that's season 3, and that is not canon. So we're just gonna pretend that that didn't happen, and it just ends on that kiss, and then we're just gonna call it a day. But overall, I thought the season was great. I mean, there were issues that I had with it, like for example, the triangle love scene, because also the nurse that Sousa is dating and also wants to marry, after the engagement gets broken off, she never shows up again. And it's like, that's so bad. I feel bad for the girl because she really liked Sousa, but Sousa just didn't want her. He just had her so that he didn't have to think about the original woman that he maybe couldn't get, but apparently can get. And it's just, I don't know, I felt that like that plot line, I always hate like a love triangle. No matter how you look at it, I always hate that stuff. But this way, I hated it even more. And also, I didn't feel like the villains were all that compelling compared to the first season. They at least had a backstory that worked more traumatizing than this one, but this one was more about a lust for power. But overall, I enjoyed the season. Like I said, I think the character work is better in this season. Because like you have Rosa, Samberly, you got Sousa, and well, Peggy and Thompson and all that stuff. You got a lot of great characters, but the story took a hit. While in the first season, the story was great, but the characters were not all the way up there. They were up there, don't worry about it, but they weren't all the way up there. Like Rosa, for example, gets completely sidelined in season 1. Like the most iconic thing she does is cry about a jerk being dead. That's all she does. And then in season 2, she gets this whole character, and it's like, great, that's fantastic. And I really like that for her. But that's the ending of the spoiler talk. I am absolutely dizzy right now. I'm just gonna say it right now. Remembering the whole season made me very dizzy. I'm excited that we're going back to movies, because movies is just quicker because I don't have to remember like a 10 episode season. I just have to remember a 2-hour movie, maybe 3 with Endgame, but 2-hour movie. So yeah, anyway, comment down below. Let me know what you guys thought about season 2. You can now do full-on spoilers. I don't really care. But comment down below. Let me know what you guys think of Season 2. And also to anyone complaining about the fact that I have a spoiler talk and a non-spoiler video. The reason for that is because of the fact that I am an autistic person. And I'm going to blame it on my autism. Because I like to do things the same. It's an autistic trait that I absolutely do have. By the way, unlike all those garbage people on TikTok who diagnose themselves and are like, yeah, I have ADHD because I tapped my foot twice yesterday. And I have autism because I opened the door the same way today that I did yesterday. And it's like, what? No, I was officially diagnosed. But I like to do things the same way. It allows me to make it better. If I were to talk spoilers during this stuff, and then during Captain America Brave New World review, I can't do spoilers. So I need to make a separate spoiler talk. So it's better to just make a separate spoiler talk. And also this way it allows me to focus more on the review itself, and then spoiler talk, you go on for an hour if you have to. Who cares? But that's why I do it. So anyway, like I said, comment down below. Let me know what you guys thought of Agent Carter Season 2. And what would you give the show overall? Now obviously I gave 2 8 out of 10. So that obviously means this show is a 6. No, it's an 8 out of 10. I think overall it's a really good show. Definitely worthy as being officially MCU canon. However, it is also so far removed that the canon doesn't necessarily matter. I just like to watch it because I'm very much in love with Peggy Carter. But with that being said, thank you all so very much for watching, and I hope you guys have enjoyed. And if you did, please like button, subscribe if you're new, if you've done so already, turn on notifications, and don't forget to check out the Let's Play channel, link to the description and at the end of the video. And I guess I will indeed be seeing you guys next time for, oh god no.